I'm completely lost and unsure of what to do. There were signs, but I ignored them, blinded by love and never imagining this could happen to me, especially not with her, my wife and best friend of almost 20 years. I work out of town and wasn't supposed to be back until tonight. We had planned to leave for a 2-week road trip tomorrow. Since work was slow, I came home yesterday afternoon. This trip was meant to give us some alone time since we'd been so busy with family and friends all summer. When I arrived, there was an unfamiliar truck in my driveway. My neighbor had recently asked how I liked the new truck, but I thought he was mistaken and didn't think much of it. The moment I saw the truck, I had a terrible gut feeling. I loved and trusted my wife completely, but that feeling was strong. I snuck around the side of the house to our bedroom window. It was open, and I could hear them as I got closer. I looked in the window, and my worst fear was confirmed. They were naked on our bed. I walked away, fighting the urge to do something I knew I'd regret. I'm struggling to care about what happens to me now. I went to my family's cabin for the night and drank everything there. Today I was on my way home to confront her but decided against it. I'm not ready. All I can feel is anger, and all I can think about is violence. I'm not in a good place to see her right now. I'm back at the cabin with a 60-ounce bottle of rum, staring at it for an hour. I want to get drunk and forget this, but don't want to make bad decisions. I know this is a critical moment in my life, and my actions in the coming days will shape my future. That's why I'm here. I need help. I'm not ready to talk to family or friends, so I'm reaching out to strangers. The amount of support and advice I've received is unbelievable. I actually got choked up realizing how many great people are willing to help a stranger. It gives me a bit of hope for the world when I needed it most. The downside to all this support is that I'm struggling to respond to everyone. I have over 600 unread private messages and several hundred unread comments. I want to thank everyone individually, and I'll make an effort to do that, but it won't be quick. So, I'll start with a big thank you to everyone for your kind messages and helpful advice. It means a lot to me. I've noticed several recurring comments and questions, so I wanted to provide clarity in addition to my minor update. If you can't tell, I'm feeling a lot better today. The pain has almost completely gone away. I still feel like I've been punched in the gut, but otherwise I've started looking to the future. It's been 2 days, and this doesn't seem right to me. Is this the calm before the storm, or am I just freakishly resilient? To clarify some things, when I said my wife was my best friend, I meant she played both roles in my life. The other guy wasn't my best friend, or even someone I knew. From the quick glance I got, and seeing his vehicle, I don't feel like I know him. We don't have kids, although we were planning to have them soon. We recently sold our house, and we're set to move closer to my job in September when the new owners take possession. I'm going to thank my neighbor subtly, like he did for me. A lot of people have asked about the signs I mentioned overlooking. Off the top of my head, here are a few. She was texting abnormally late at night, going for after-work drinks with friends regularly, which was unlike her, but I was glad she was being social. She had yoga once a week, but apparently wasn't paying because one of her coworkers was the instructor, and she helped with setup and cleanup. I also thought she was very inflexible for someone who went to yoga. We regularly answer each other's phones if we're closer to it, and several times she had an unknown caller who would hang up as soon as I answered. We get a lot of spam calls, but usually it's a telemarketer or a debt collector looking for the previous owner of the number. Rarely it's a hang-up. The update is a work in progress. When my brother arrived, we had a long talk. He has been my true best friend, and I realized I need to always remember that and know he will always be there for me, without judgment, the same way I would be for him. He really sets the standard for what a true friendship is, even if we fight occasionally. Since I was supposed to be home last night, I decided to respond to my wife's text. We're not allowed to have phones on site, so it was reasonable for me to only text her. She knows it's easy for me to sneak in some texts. I wrote her and said I needed to go to one of my company's remote sites and wouldn't be able to call her until the end of the weekend. I told her that I'd cancel all our reservations and rebook them later. She suggested taking her best friend to the romantic bed and breakfast on the vineyard I had booked, but I knew she was hinting at someone else, not her best friend. I informed her that I had already given the reservation to my brother and his wife, since it was non-refundable, and they'd pay me back in a month. This morning, I canceled all the reservations, except the romantic one because my brother was coming with me. Thankfully, the hotel allowed us to switch from the honeymoon suite to a room with 2 beds. Conveniently, there's a nice lake nearby with boat rentals, so this turned into a much-needed fishing trip with my brother. This means I'm free for the weekend and don't have to write or talk to her for a few days, which eases some stress and gives me more time to think. Right now, I'm leaning toward divorce. I honestly can't see any other way. My brother supports this but has asked me to take a few weeks and talk to someone. His wife has a friend who is a couples counselor willing to talk to me on Monday. I doubt it will change my mind, but at least it might help me sort through some of this mess. I'm also following advice from here and starting to speak to lawyers to prepare for what seems inevitable. I want to handle this correctly. I never thought she'd try to screw me over, but I also never expected her to cheat, so I need to be prepared for anything. Thanks again, everyone. I'm going to try to enjoy my weekend as much as possible. Update 2. A lot has happened in the past few days. I'll start with the less important stuff. My brother John and I drove nearly 5 hours to the bed and breakfast on the vineyard. I really appreciate him being there for me through this. It was more of a venting session than anything, but it really helped clear my head. After spending most of the drive complaining to him, I wanted a little alone time while he went out for dinner. I stayed in the room, and he brought back some food for me. He also managed to rent a boat for the next day. On Saturday, we hit the water. The B&B owner knew about our fishing plans and kindly packed us a small cooler of food and drinks, making the romantic package more useful for 2 brothers. It was a nice gesture. Fishing wasn't great. We both caught a couple of trout that we had to release due to their size, so the snacks from the B&B worked out well. We stopped fishing in the mid-afternoon and then drove around to all the vineyards and fruit stands, buying food and cases of wine for John's wife, Emily. That night, we went for the biggest tomahawk steak we could find. On Sunday, we drove back to John's place. He lives in the next town over from me, about an hour away. When we arrived, Emily was there, and we all sat down and cracked open a bottle of white wine we had chilling in the cooler. That was when the weekend officially ended for me. Emily told me that while we were away, she decided to spy on my wife. She saw the guy at my place on Friday night, all night. On Saturday morning, she managed to get there just as he was leaving. She followed him home and found the apartment where he lived. My wife stayed over there on Saturday night while she was texting me, saying she loved and missed me. Emily said she spent time visiting family in my town and stalking my wife. She caught my wife leaving his apartment on Sunday morning and took a few pictures of them hugging and kissing before she got into her car. I don't want to see them. That pretty much sealed the deal for me. I don't think I could ever trust her again if she can turn it on and off so easily, telling me she loves me while being with another guy. Still, I decided not to react impulsively based on emotions. I need to remain calm and level-headed. That's when Emily told me that Lisa was coming over for dinner. Lisa is the counselor Emily set up an appointment with for me. To clarify, Lisa has never met my wife, and this was my first time meeting her as well. Lisa was a very nice person, and we got along great. After dinner, Lisa and I took a walk around John's neighborhood to walk the dogs and have a private conversation. Lisa was really helpful as a great listener and made me feel comfortable enough to open up. It was therapeutic to freely describe my feelings. As much as I am comfortable with my brother, this was different and very needed. It's the same reason I like writing this on Reddit. It's a vent session that helps me untangle some of the mess in my head. Our walk lasted an hour, and the only real advice Lisa gave me was not to delay the conversation with my wife. She said the longer I wait, the harder it will become to talk to her about this. She emphasized that I need clarity more than anything. At this point, my wife is the only one who can give me the answers I need. Later that night, Emily and John offered to let me stay with them for as long as I needed. Knowing John and I wouldn't last long in close quarters, I reached out to my boss, who managed to arrange for me to stay in company housing full-time for a few months if necessary. I decided to book another session with Lisa for later this week, thinking our walk was enough for the first session, and she agreed. Sunday night, I lay in bed, struggling with how to approach this. Even running through imaginary scenarios in my head made me angry or sad. I decided to just wing it because I tend to handle pressure well. Yesterday, I woke up, said my goodbyes to John and Emily, and headed towards home. I worried about what I would do if he was there when I arrived. I realized that would just put me back in the furious state I was in a few days ago, so I decided to drive by first. Neither his truck nor my wife's car was there. I went inside, grabbed essentials and things I couldn't part with, mainly photos and old family heirlooms, and packed them in my truck. Then I drove to his apartment. Her car wasn't there, but his truck was. I texted her, asking where she was, and she said she was getting groceries. My trust in her is so shattered that I actually drove by the grocery store to confirm she was there. I feel so ashamed admitting that, but my trust is broken, and it's the only way I can be certain of anything. I texted her again, telling her to come home because we needed to talk. She replied, "What's wrong?" I simply said she needed to be ready to be honest, then turned off my phone. She arrived 15 minutes later. When she walked in, she tried to hug and kiss me as usual, but I turned away. She asked again what was wrong, so I told her she needed to start being honest with me. She acted confused and claimed she had no idea what I was talking about. I said, "Okay, if you can't be honest, then I'm leaving." She started to panic and blurted out, "Are you talking about yoga?" I saw an opening, so I asked what she meant. She admitted she hadn't been going to yoga. Here's a breakdown of the rest of our conversation. If you weren't going to yoga, then where were you going? I was taking walks to relax because I've been so stressed lately. Why are you so stressed? And why did you lie about what you were doing? Preparing for the move has been stressing me out, and I didn't know how to tell you. So you decided to lie? Why didn't you just tell me you were going for walks to de-stress? I didn't mean to lie. I was worried my stress would add to yours. But I'm not stressed. It really seems like you're hiding more. What do you mean? I think you're lying about more than just skipping yoga. I'm asking you again to be honest. You've already lied, so this won't work if you keep lying. I don't know what else to say. Oh, are you talking about last weekend when I went for drinks with friends and came home late? I had a feeling that bothered you. I had no clue you went for drinks or were out late. I was working a few hours away. Is that what you actually did, or is that another lie? I went for drinks that night, but I didn't see my best friend like I said I did. Who did you see? No one. I just drank alone. You drink alone now? Yeah, maybe I have a problem. Maybe we'll talk about that later. Last chance, be honest or I'm leaving. I don't know what else to say. Okay, I'm leaving. At that point, I got up and left. Usually after an argument, I go for a drive to cool off. She probably thought this was the same, but then she realized I had taken my clothes, toiletries, and the Xbox. That's when she started blowing up my phone. I told her I gave her a chance to be honest, and she didn't take it, so there's nothing left to say. She begged and pleaded for me to come home and talk in person. She said she had no idea why I was so upset or what she did. Hearing her say she loved me and would never hurt me tore a new hole in my chest. Those words, which used to be so comforting, now felt like a dull, jagged knife sawing through my heart. I couldn't handle it, so I hung up. She called back about 40 times before I answered again. This time she asked, "Did you talk to Sarah?" Her best friend. I asked why, and she said, "Come home. I don't want to say this over the phone." I agreed, drove around a bit longer to calm down, then went home. That conversation went like this. "I assume you spoke to Sarah?" I asked. She hesitated, then started. "A few weeks ago, while you were at work, Sarah and I went out for drinks. Some guys started buying us drinks, so we went along with it. When we were leaving, one of them tried to kiss me. I pulled away and told him I was married. I felt awful and wanted to tell you, but I was stupid and hid it. Sarah hooked up with the other guy and gave his friend my number without asking. He has texted me a few times, but I never replied. Can I see your phone? Sure. She handed me her phone, but all the texts were gone except for mine and her mother's. She never deletes her messages, so this was suspicious. I checked her photos, which were also wiped clean. But then I found a deleted photo of a guy I didn't recognize. Who's this? That's the guy who tried to kiss me. Why did you take a picture of him? I was being stupid. That's not an answer. Why did you take a picture of him? I don't know. Is that everything, or is there more? That's all I can think of. Feeling fed up with the half-truths, I left. I got in my truck and drove away, ignoring her as she ran outside trying to stop me. I went to a nearby park, sat on my tailgate, and tried to figure out my next move. Memories of other suspicious incidents flooded my mind, like the time I was working a weekend shift and she went clubbing with her friends. I woke up at 4 a.m. and she wasn't home. I called her repeatedly with no answer. Half an hour later she called, asking me to pick her up, She said they tried to get a taxi but failed, and a couple of guys her friend knew offered them a ride, but they wanted to stop at their place first. Her married friend disappeared with one of the guys, leaving my wife in the kitchen with the roommates. She claimed she didn't hear her phone. We fought about it, and she cut that friend out of her life, or so she said. Another time, she visited a friend in another city for a girls' night. She called me around 1 a.m. to say goodnight, insisting they were having a great time. Then I heard a guy's voice in the background. She denied it at first, then admitted a couple of guys were there, brought by one of her friends. She promised never to put herself in that situation again, but obviously, that promise didn't hold. After recalling all these incidents, I decided to give this one last chance. I turned my phone back on, and she immediately called, begging me to come home. I drove back and walked in to find her sobbing on the couch, repeating, "I'm so sorry." "For what?" I asked. She started rocking back and forth. After a few minutes, she admitted, "I lied about the guy who tried to kiss me." "Okay, tell me what really happened." "That night, the four of us went back to his place. We fooled around." Hearing this made me feel dizzy. The room felt like it was closing in, and I thought I was having a panic attack. I went to the bathroom, splashed cold water on my face, and tried to calm down. "What did you do? I need to know everything." "Do you really want me to tell you?" "Yes." "Fine. We messed around, but it was bad." "Is that it?" "Yes." "I'm not playing this game. Tell me everything now or this is over." She started crying again and took several minutes to compose herself. "We met up again and had sex. I'm so sorry. I love you and will do anything to make up for this. Just please, give me a chance." "I'll think about it." "It was an affair. We've been hooking up while you were out of town for work. It's been going on for almost a month. He's married and they're about to get divorced." "Does he know you're married?" "Yes." "If his marriage is failing and he's having an affair, does that mean you think ours is failing? Is that what you told him?" "No, I don't think ours is failing. I'm just so stupid. I hate myself. Please don't leave me. I can fix this." "How?" "Whatever you want. If you were in my shoes, what would fix this for you?" "Knowing the truth. Trusting you to mean what you say. You can trust me. I screwed up, but I won't do it again." "If you were his wife, wouldn't you want to know the truth?" "Yes." "Then fix this. You want me to call her?" "If that's what you would want." She tried calling but got no answer. A few minutes later, her phone rang. It was listed as Sarah Work. She looked shocked, so I knew it was him. I answered, and he said, "Oops, wrong number." I replied, "No, this is the husband of the woman you've been cheating with. She has something to say to you." I handed her the phone. I told him everything. He knows the truth. We're done. Never contact me again. I took the phone before she hung up. "What divorce lawyer are you using?" "I'm not getting divorced." "But didn't you tell your wife you were?" "No." "Can I speak to your wife? She deserves to know." "Please, man, I didn't know she was married. Don't ruin my marriage over a mistake." "You ruined mine. It's only fair." "Please don't. She's at work. I'll tell her everything when she gets home, I swear." "Okay, you do that." Then I hung up. I asked my wife if she knew where his wife worked and her name. She did. I had her call and ask for his wife at work. She got her on the phone, and I told her to take a seat. His wife said she was about to leave and would call back from her car. She did. "What's going on?" she asked. "I have something terrible to tell you," my wife said. "Please don't drive." "Oh my God, did something happen to him?" "No, he's fine. He's at your apartment right now. I'm just letting you know we've been having an affair for a month. I'm coming clean to my husband and thought you should know too." There was a long silence. Then his wife said, "If this is a sick joke, I'll find out who you are," and hung up. Not even 10 minutes later, my wife got a text from Sarah Work saying, "Thanks, you just ruined my life." I grabbed the phone and wrote back, "You ruined 4 lives and 2 marriages. This is your fault, you piece of crap." For the next hour, my wife begged me to stay. She offered counseling, never to leave my side, even sexual favors. She then suggested we go on that vacation, her treat, to spend quality time together. This was exactly what I expected her to say. She wasn't prepared for me to tell her I went anyway, had counseling booked for myself, and had caught her in our bed. She didn't expect I had a place lined up to stay. When I told her all this, she fell to the floor bawling, saying she didn't deserve to live and that I should kill her because she was too terrible for anyone. It went on for hours. I stayed, listening to her excuses and pleas. Finally, I called Sarah and told her to come over because her suicidal friend needed supervision. Then I left. It's been almost a full day since, and I haven't spoken to her. She's been calling and texting me all day, as have her friends and family, each with different excuses and pleas. Her father was the only one who said I need to do what's best for me, and that he would always love me like a son. Reading that made me cry for the first time since this began. I meet with Lisa, my counselor, tomorrow, and a lawyer on Thursday. I think you know where this is going, but until it happens, I'm not sure about anything. This past week has been a whirlwind. I've been bouncing between camp and my brother's place, trying not to be a burden. I stay there only when I have early appointments. My company has given me a few weeks of personal time, which has been a huge help. I've continued seeing Lisa, the therapist. I've seen her 3 times now. While I don't think the sessions are very productive, it helps to clear my thoughts. For that reason, I'll keep going for now. I spoke with a lawyer last Thursday. Following their advice, I listed all our assets, finances, and debts. I went to the bank and put a stop on our joint account so no one could withdraw money without the other present. Our paychecks are deposited into our personal accounts, so we can still access new money, just not the old shared money. The lawyer suggested I wait to confront her until I serve her the papers, but it's too late for that. All week, I received constant calls and texts from my wife, her family, and her friends. This past weekend, my sister-in-law organized a family gathering at the cabin. I went and dropped the bombshell on my family. At least it's out in the open, and I can include them in my recovery. Things were going as well as could be expected until Saturday night. I was sitting by the fire with my brother and dad when my wife's car pulled up. My brother John said he'd handle it, and my dad and I went for a walk. My wife, let's call her Mary, ran over to me bawling. She hugged me, and I didn't stop her but didn't hug back. She begged me to talk, so we walked around the property for privacy. Mary told me the other guy's wife had left him. He called, threatening suicide and blaming her. She told him to go ahead and hasn't spoken to him since. She showed me the messages. He had been texting her non-stop, but she ignored him and blocked his number. Seeing this brought a rush of emotions: anger, sadness, relief, and confusion. While envisioning my life post-divorce, I realized I wanted a complete restart. I'm already dealing with massive changes, so I might as well do exactly what I want. Hearing Mary say she wanted the same thing made me snap back to missing her and wanting to be with her. That was when I knew I had to end the conversation. I walked her back to her car, where her friends waited. They looked devastated. I want nothing more than to pack up and start over somewhere else. I wish it could be with her, but she ruined that. She robbed me of that.